Welcome to the shadowed corners of modern Asia, where neon lights flicker above ancient whispers, and even the newest buildings carry old, forgotten sins. This is where spirits don't knock, they slip through signals, through screens, through static. You are watching Ghosts of Asia, a channel where every story is grounded in chilling reality. Drawn from the darkest alleys, cursed apartments, and haunted rituals buried beneath the surface of everyday life. Tonight's tale is not just a ghost story, it's a warning about technology, about trust, about the moment at exactly 3:33 a.m. when the baby monitor screamed. The rain had stopped just long enough for them to carry the last of the boxes into the apartment. Third floor, no elevator, dim stairwell, cracked steps. One flickering light at the top that buzzed like it had something to say but couldn't quite get it out. Akira carried the final box with one arm, balancing it against his chest as the other hand steadied a swaddled bundle. Their daughter, Hina, only 3 months old, and sleeping with the kind of peace only babies or the dead could manage. Yui, pale and sleep-deprived, trailed behind him, holding a bag of diapers and formula, her other hand resting lightly against the chipped wall for balance. They said nothing to each other as they entered. Words had become a luxury since the birth, reserved mostly for emergency cries or muttered reassurances at 4 in the morning. Most of their communication now was in glances, sighs, or that heavy silence born of love and exhaustion. The apartment was small, one bedroom, one narrow hallway, one tiny kitchen that shared its breadth with the living room. The nursery, if you could call it that, was barely more than a closet, but it was cheap. Too cheap, in fact, for its location in the heart of Tokyo. The agent had said it was due to low sunlight. But even then, Akira had felt it, the stillness, the kind of quiet that doesn't just mean silence, but waiting. Hina stirred as he stepped into the nursery. He gently lowered her into the crib, a second-hand one Yui had scrubbed obsessively. She looked peaceful, fragile. Soft tufts of black hair framing a face that didn't yet know fear. The walls were a dull gray, no windows, only a vent high in the corner that rattled once every few hours like a throat trying to clear itself. Akira looked around and frowned. Something about the air felt heavy. He turned to leave, and that's when he saw her, an old woman standing in the doorway, smiling. He jumped, clutching his chest. "Sumimasen!" She laughed, bowing quickly. "I didn't mean to startle you. I'm from 3A, just across the hall." Her voice was soft, but her eyes were too wide and they didn't blink enough. "I brought something," she added, holding out a small bundle of incense tied with red twine. "For the baby. It's for protection, old tradition." Akira hesitated, then took it with a polite smile. "That's very kind, thank you." She nodded, still smiling, and before he could say anything else, she turned and disappeared into the hallway without another word. Yui appeared a moment later. "Who was that?" "Neighbor, gave us this." He handed her the incense. Yui frowned. "Is it burning?" "No, just smells like something." They both sniffed. There was a scent, not quite floral, not quite herbal. It lingered like memory. That night, as they settled into their new home, they set up the baby monitor. A cheap one, but functional. A camera above the crib and a small screen that sat on the nightstand beside their bed. "Just to make sure," Yuri said, "in case she cries and we don't hear." Akira nodded. They slept light, the kind of sleep that never really reaches its depths. Akira woke once to check the monitor. Black and white fuzz, then Hina's small figure curled like a comma in the crib. He smiled. For a moment, just a moment, he thought he saw something shift in the background, a movement in the upper corner of the screen, but it was just a flicker, a glitch. He shook his head, turned off the monitor, and tried to sleep again. The next morning, the apartment felt colder. Not in temperature, in spirit. Yui said she had a dream, something about a woman humming and brushing Hina's hair, even though she had none. Akira brushed it off. "It's just stress," he said. "We're tired, that's all." They spent the day unpacking, cleaning, organizing. In the nursery, Yui paused. "Do you smell that?" she asked. Akira nodded. "It's that incense." "No," she sniffed again. "It's wet wood, old wood, like something rotten." They checked the walls, the floor, the crib. Nothing. No mold, no leaks, but the smell didn't leave. That night, they lit the incense just to see if it helped. The smoke curled into strange shapes, not spirals, more like crooked lines that bent at sharp angles. Akira watched it as Yui rocked Hina to sleep. "Do you think there's something wrong with this place?" she whispered. Akira hesitated. "It's cheap, old, probably has its ghosts." She looked at him sharply. "Figuratively," he added quickly. They laughed, but it didn't last. As they lay in bed, the monitor flickered once, then steadied. Hina was still. The room was quiet, but the smoke from the incense kept curling long after it should have faded. And in the hallway outside, something brushed gently against the door. Not a knock, just a whisper of touch, like fingertips trailing wood. The first real scream came on the third night. Not from Hina, not from either parent, but from the baby monitor itself. It was 3:33 a.m. Akira sat up first. His body moved before his mind had even caught up, instinct overriding sleep. The monitor, usually a soft, glowing hum, now blasted static at full volume. Not just static, a scream woven inside it, like someone was being torn open inside a TV. Yui gasped awake beside him, clutching her chest, eyes wide. "Hina!" Akira lunged for the monitor, fumbling with the volume, pressing buttons that didn't respond. The screen was pure snow, white noise crawling across the surface in chaotic lines. It crackled like bones being chewed. The scream didn't stop. They both jumped out of bed. The hallway felt longer than it had any right to be. The door to the nursery was half closed. Light from the monitor camera glowed faintly inside. Akira pushed the door open. Silence. Hina lay in the crib, peaceful, breathing softly, a small fist curled near her face. The room was cold, unnaturally so. The incense stick had burned out. The smell was gone, replaced by something sour, like breath held too long. Yui stepped inside. Her hands trembled as she picked up the baby. She's okay, she whispered. Akira checked the camera above the crib. It was still recording. He unplugged the monitor, brought it back to their bedroom, and connected it to his laptop. Yui sat on the bed, Hina in her arms, eyes locked on the screen. Akira scrubbed backward. 3:32, 3:31, he slowed it down. At 3:32:55, everything looked normal. At 3:33:00, the static hit, but not all at once. A flicker, a shape, a presence. He paused the frame. In the top right corner of the screen, just outside the edge of the crib, a tall, pale figure leaned in. It had no face. Where its features should have been, there was only skin, smooth, blank, like it had forgotten how to be human. Its head was tilted at an impossible angle, neck bent sideways like a broken branch, and, though the camera had no audio, in the footage, its mouth moved, a subtle, shuddering twitch beneath the smooth skin, as if lips existed somewhere, just beneath. Yui clamped her mouth over. "Is that in the room?" she whispered. Akira didn't answer. He scrubbed forward. The figure remained for 17 seconds. Then, as if sensing it had been seen, it slowly turned toward the camera, or rather, the empty space where a face should be, did. And then it vanished. Cut. Gone. Back to Hina, sleeping alone. The timestamp kept reading 3:33, frozen as if time had hesitated there too. They didn't speak for a long time. Later that morning, the apartment felt different, hollow, like someone had left a door open inside the walls. Akira tried to rationalize, a glitch, a reflection, a corrupted file. Yui said nothing. She didn't speak all day except to sing lullabies in a voice that didn't quite sound like hers. That night, Akira stayed awake. He placed the monitor on the windowsill facing the nursery. He checked the angles. He reviewed the connections. Everything was fine. Midnight passed. At 3:29, the room was still. At 3:32, the static returned. Not loud this time. Not yet. Just a soft whine, like something whispering inside a jar. Akira leaned close, his eyes stung from not blinking. The figure appeared again. Same corner. This time, its head was upright, more deliberate, as if watching. It leaned forward slightly. Its hands, long and skeletal, hovered over the crib, not touching Hina, just hovering, trembling, as if unsure whether it was allowed. Then it began to whisper. Not heard, but seen. Its mouth twitched in stuttered motion, like language breaking apart, words not meant for this world. Akira hit pause, zoomed in. No audio, but on the screen, something else had changed. Behind the figure, in the shadows, there was something else moving. Not quite a second figure. It was as if the wall itself had started to breathe. The next day, Akira called the camera company. "Probably a firmware issue," the rep said casually. "Some older models glitch out in night vision mode. Try updating the software." He hung up. Yui was in the nursery, sitting perfectly still. She was humming again, but the tune was off, like a familiar lullaby played backwards. She looked up at him and smiled. Her eyes looked fogged, like she hadn't slept in weeks, or like she'd seen something she was trying to forget. "Do you hear her whispering?" she asked. Akira froze. "What?" Yui gently touched Hina's cheek. "She talks in her sleep now, like she's learning a language." Akira stared at the baby. Hina was sleeping, but her lips moved, softly, slowly, whispering something, silent, like she was remembering something she'd never been taught. The next night, it happened again. 3:33 a.m. Same scream, same static, same impossible figure. This time, the faceless thing was not beside the crib. It was on the ceiling. Akira watched it through the monitor, paralyzed. Its long, jointless limbs pressed flat against the plaster, like a spider. Elbows and knees bent backward, impossibly still. Its head was cocked at a 90-degree angle. Mouth, if it even had one, still twitching against its smooth skin, forming words that didn't exist in human language. And Hina? She wasn't crying. She was smiling. Not the reflexive, innocent smile of a newborn. A deeper smile, almost knowing. Akira watched until the figure slithered across the ceiling, silently, and disappeared into the corner again, like smoke curling out of sight. He didn't wake Yui. He couldn't, because something inside him whispered, "She already knows." The next morning, the monitor screen stayed black. Akira tried turning it on. The power light flickered, then died. He bought a new one that afternoon, top of the line, infrared, two-way audio, secure cloud sync, triple backup. He set it up that evening, checking every angle of the room, testing every feature. And at 3:33, it screamed again. The new monitor. The same scream, the same static, but clearer now. No glitch, no tech failure. The voice was unmistakable, a whisper buried in the white noise, crawling just beneath the frequency of understanding. Akira played it back frame by frame, and the pattern began to reveal itself. Night 1, the figure leaned in the corner, silent, distant, watching. Night 2, it hovered above the crib. Night 3, it crawled across the ceiling, mimicking the baby sleep rhythm. Night 4, it stood behind Yui, not in real life, but only on the screen. She had been rocking Hina, humming softly. Akira had walked past her, kissed her on the head, and checked the pot on the stove. But in the footage, as she rocked the baby, the faceless figure stood directly behind her, its head almost resting on her shoulder, whispering, mouthing words into her ear. And Yui? She never flinched, as if she couldn't hear it, or worse, as if she could. Akira tried confronting her that morning, but Yui just stared through him. "What's wrong with me sleeping?" she asked, as if answering a question he hadn't asked. "Mothers need rest." "You weren't sleeping," he said. "You were in the nursery, rocking Hina." She tilted her head. "No, that was you." Akira froze. He replayed the video. In the footage, yes, the timestamp confirmed it. But when he looked closer, the figure holding Hina was not Yui. It looked like her, but the face had no features, just smooth, shifting skin, as if something wore her like a memory. The following nights only deepened the ritual. The figure began to change positions, always at 3:33. Sometimes behind the curtain, sometimes directly under the crib, lying flat against the floor. Once it stood in the hallway, outside the nursery, staring into the monitor, motionless, as if it had begun to notice the watcher. Akira began dreading sleep, dreading time itself. Every night, 3:33 became a countdown. The worst was the night the monitor turned on by itself. They had both been asleep, both of them. Akira awoke not to sound, but to silence, deafening silence. The monitor screen was glowing faintly, and there, clear as daylight, was the figure crouched inside the crib, not standing over it, inside it. Crammed into the space with Hina, limbs curled unnaturally like a doll stuffed into a shoebox. Its arms were around the baby, not harming her, holding her. And for the first time, Hina looked back at it. Her eyes were open, and she smiled again. Akira unplugged the monitor. He disconnected the camera. He shut down the cloud storage. It didn't help. The next night, the screen lit up again. No power, no battery, but still, it showed footage. Live. And now there were two figures. one above the crib, and one in the reflection of the nursery window, staring directly into the lens. Its hand pressed against the glass, its skin pale, seamless. And for a single second, Akira saw his own reflection mimic the figure's movement, though he hadn't moved at all. The signal, it seemed, was no longer coming from the camera. It was coming from somewhere else. Yui began sleeping longer, speaking less. She stopped responding to questions. Her eyes would go vacant for minutes at a time. Once, Akira found her sitting on the floor drawing in crayon. The paper was filled with distorted shapes, limbs, mouths, and dozens of faceless dolls with stretched finger-like arms. Each drawing was dated, each at 3:33 a.m. He gathered them all and burned them in the sink, but the next day they were back on the table, neatly stacked, unburned. Yui looked up and whispered, "She teaches me." They tried staying up together, caffeine, energy drinks, cold showers, but something pulled them under each night, as if sleep had become a ritual too. Akira installed an alarm for 3:32, loud enough to wake the neighbors. It never rang. Each night they woke up to the monitor already on, footage already playing. 3:33, again, again, again. Each time the figure was closer. Each time Hina was quieter, until one night they found her whispering back.
The first time Akira noticed the baby's mouth moving, it was so subtle, he thought it was a reflex. Hina lay asleep in the crib. Her eyes fluttered beneath the lids. Her fists relaxed. Her lips began to form shapes. Not a yawn, not a smile, but words. Silent, perfect shapes of speech, over and over, as if reciting something memorized. Akira leaned in, watching closely. The rhythm was familiar, not human, not quite, more like the glitching mouth of the figure on the screen. The same stuttered patterns, the same broken syllables. Akira whispered, "Hina?" Her lips stopped. She smiled again, wide, content, unbothered, and then turned her face to the blank corner of the room, as if something had whispered back. He recorded it. He sent the video to a child development forum, to a sleep specialist, even posted it anonymously in a parenting group. The replies came fast. "This isn't normal. Get out of that apartment. That's not a developmental stage, that's mimicry." One private message stood out. A username with no profile picture, no name, just one sentence. "That's not your baby anymore. Not completely." He blocked the account, but the message stayed in his inbox, no matter how many times he deleted it. He searched online for answers. Faceless spirits, whispering ghosts, midnight rituals, urban hauntings. None of it explained why the baby was learning the language of something invisible. So he went further. He dug through Tokyo's urban legend archives, university records, police reports, anything tied to the apartment's address. Finally, buried in a database of discontinued residential permits, he found it. The building stood atop what was once a hidden post-war maternity shelter. Unofficial, unlicensed, a house where women brought babies that were never meant to be seen. Unmarried, shamed, abandoned. The midwife was known only as Okuchi, the mouth, a woman who promised mercy for a price. She performed late-term rituals, not just to ease death, but to bind it. Wrap the child in silk, Muffle its voice so the other side cannot hear. If you let it cry, it will never leave." Akira stared at the words until his screen blurred. Okuchi, the mouth that took children, the mouth that still whispered. That night, he found something behind the wallpaper. It was Yui who pointed it out, her voice distant, her fingers bleeding from scratching at the walls. "There's something inside," she murmured. He peeled back the wallpaper in the nursery, revealing a patch of faded wood covered in soot. On the panel was a talisman, paper, torn, scorched at the edges. Drawn in red ink, a crude mouth sewn shut with 7 strokes, each bleeding into the next. Beneath it, a name. Not in kanji, not in hiragana, not any script Akira recognized. The moment he touched it, Hina woke up screaming. The monitor turned on by itself. The static was louder than ever. And this time, over the noise, a voice whispered his name. Akira dropped the talisman. The monitor went black. Yui grew worse. She no longer responded when spoken to. She rocked back and forth on the floor, clutching Hina tightly, muttering that same twisted lullaby, the one that sounded like a prayer turned inside out. The tune didn't come from a songbook. It came from somewhere else. Sometimes she wouldn't blink for minutes at a time. Other times she would smile and whisper things into Hina's ear. Akira began recording everything. He set up 3 cameras, one in the bedroom, one in the nursery, one in the hallway, pointed at the front door. He made sure to keep all footage backed up. And yet, every morning, the files were altered, not deleted, just overwritten. Each file began normally. Then, at 3:33, the screen would flicker, and suddenly Akira would be missing. In his place, the faceless figure, holding Hina, always holding her. Yui beside it, smiling, and in the corner, another child, unmoving, wrapped in silk, its mouth sewn shut. He called the manufacturer. "I've done everything you said," he told the tech support rep. "Sometimes interference doesn't come from us," he said. "What does that mean?" "I mean, the camera just shows what's there, even if it shouldn't be." Akira hung up. He unplugged everything, but the monitor still turned on. It didn't need power anymore. It had a memory of its own. One night, he woke to find the monitor recording himself, not sleeping, not moving, just watching. Except he wasn't watching the monitor. He was staring into the camera directly, with no expression. And his lips were moving, just like Hina's, just like the thing in the crib, whispering. But not in his voice. And behind him, in the footage, the nursery door was open, and the crib was empty. He showed the footage to Yui. She stared at it for a long time, then looked at him and whispered, "I think we're not meant to understand. Just obey." Akira grabbed her by the shoulders. "This isn't you," he said. "This isn't us." But Yui only smiled, and from the nursery, Hina began to laugh. Low, rhythmic, unnatural, like someone had taught her how. That night, Akira sat alone with the monitor. He stared at the black screen, waiting. And at exactly 3:33, the screen didn't show the nursery. It showed himself, but from the perspective of something higher, as if the camera was now in the ceiling. He watched himself stand from the chair, eyes closed, and walk toward the crib. In the footage, his mouth opened, and he began to hum. Not a lullaby, not a prayer, but a single sound held too long until it cracked. A sound that felt like memory, like grief, like something older than language. The next morning, Akira woke on the floor. The monitor was off. Yui and Hina were asleep in bed. He checked the camera footage. It had erased itself. Only one file remained, titled Mouth. He opened it. Just 1 second of video. The figure standing behind him, and a single whisper. You gave it voice.
The sun no longer felt real. Each morning, light filtered into the apartment, but it had no warmth, no rhythm. The days had become stretched, as if the clocks refused to move past 3:32 a.m. Akira stopped checking the time. He knew. He felt it in his bones every night. The countdown, the moment, the hour of whispering. 3:33. It wasn't just an event anymore. It was becoming a place, a destination. Yui no longer left the nursery. She slept there now, curled up on a thin blanket beside the crib. Sometimes Akira would find her standing perfectly still, both hands on the railing, her face tilted toward Hina, her mouth moving in slow, delicate circles. Whispers, always whispers. "Are you saying something?" he asked once. She didn't answer, but Hina did. A single syllable, soft and hissing. Ma. It wasn't a baby's coo. It was spoken, clear, shaped. A first word meant for something that wasn't him. The neighbor knocked that afternoon. The same old woman from across the hall. Her smile was gone. Her eyes were darker. "Come in," Akira said, surprised. She stepped inside but didn't cross the threshold into the nursery hallway. "I shouldn't stay," she whispered. Akira frowned. "What's going on?" The woman held up a small bundle, another stick of incense, this one blackened at the edges, bound with white thread instead of red. "This one is not for peace," she said. "It's for binding." He stared at it. You knew this place was marked," she finished. "Yes. Why didn't you tell us?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted toward the nursery door. "Some things," she said slowly, "are better left unseen. But your child, she's seen too much already." Akira swallowed. "What is it? What does it want?" The old woman looked at him, expression grim. "It doesn't want to hurt her. It wants to keep her." That night, Akira lit the black incense and placed it on the floor near the crib. Yui sat in the rocking chair, eyes blazed. "You shouldn't burn that," she said quietly. "Why?" "She won't like it." "Who won't?" Yui looked at him, blinking slowly, then whispered, "Me." Akira stepped back. The smoke from the incense curled into the air, but not like before. It didn't rise. It fell, downward, toward the floorboards as if drawn into something beneath the room. The monitor clicked on. Unplugged, unlit, still it glowed. 3:33 a.m. The figure stood in the center of the nursery, but this time, Yui stood beside it, not on the monitor, physically in the room, still, staring, as if caught between layers of time. Akira blinked, and she was sitting again. The monitor still showed her standing. Her reflection didn't match. He searched the room the next day. Not the surface, the structure. He pried open the floorboards beneath the crib. There, buried beneath layers of dust and linen, he found it. A bundle. Old silk, molded with age, wrapped tightly around something soft. He didn't unwrap it. He didn't need to. The moment his fingers touched the bundle, he heard it. Not a sound, not in his ears, in his mouth. A whisper, forming against his will, words he didn't understand pouring from his throat. He dropped the bundle. The whispering stopped, but inside the silk, something moved. That night he set up candles in a circle, chalk markings on the floor, drawn from the pages the old woman had slipped under his door, red salt across the threshold. He stood in the center of the room and held Hina close to his chest. Yui screamed when he did, but not in rage, in sorrow. "Don't take her from me," she sobbed. "She's not gone," he shouted. "She's right here." "No," Yui wept. "She's there. She goes there, every night." He stared at her. "Where?" Yui's lips trembled, and then she whispered a word she should not have known. "Kuchi Hazure." The name, the curse, the mouthless one. At 3:33, the room went cold. The monitor turned on. In the footage, Akila stood holding the baby exactly as he was in real time, but behind him, the figure approached. It stepped forward slowly, its feet never touching the floor, as if memory itself was carrying it. The figure reached for the baby. Akira held her tighter. Then, in the monitor, the figure opened its mouth. Not a crack in the skin, but a hole, jagged and dripping, tearing upward from the chin. A mouth that had never been born, and inside, rows of baby teeth. The camera flickered. The figure reached out. Akira shouted the words on the old woman's paper, syllables that tasted like blood and ash. The candles flared. Yui screamed again. The bundle under the floor shuddered. And then, silence. The monitor went black. The air grew warmer. Yui collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Akira held Hina against his chest, sobbing. She didn't whisper that night. She just slept, peacefully, for the first time in weeks. But in the footage, the backup cloud file, one frame remained, burned into the final second. Not the figure, not Yui, not Akira, just the crib, and inside it, Hina, asleep, and above her, carved on the wall in shadowed soot, "You cannot bind what belongs to the silence."
Akira did everything right. He double-checked the salt line. He reinforced the symbols with fresh chalk. He prayed, not out of belief, but desperation. He disconnected the monitor. He turned off the power. He wrapped the camera in a thick towel and locked it in a drawer. And still, he felt it coming. That invisible pressure pressing down at the edges of the air. That strange vibration in his teeth. That weight on the chest just before something enters the room. 3:33 was no longer just a time. It was a being. That night, Akira sat alone in the nursery. Hina lay asleep in his arms, her soft breath against his chest. Yui was in the bedroom, silent, unmoving, a shadow under blankets. The incense was lit, the lights were off. Everything was ready, except the monitor turned itself on. Even inside the locked drawer, even unplugged, even silenced. Its screen glowed through the cracks like something alive. Akira didn't move. The monitor buzzed, and the image appeared.
He was already in the frame. On the screen, Akira sat on the nursery floor, just as he was now, holding Hina. Same posture, same expression. But the timestamp was already 3:33. His reflection was ahead of him. He blinked. On the screen, he blinked after. There was a delay, just a fraction of a second, but enough to feel like the monitor wasn't reflecting reality. It was predicting it. Or worse, replacing it. Akira whispered, "What are you showing me?" And in that instant, his voice came from the monitor before it left his lips. A soft creak echoed behind him. He turned. Nothing. He turned back to the screen. Now something had changed. In the corner of the nursery, behind the curtain, the fabric shifted. A subtle tug, barely visible. Then the figure stepped forward, slow, sure, faceless. But this time, it wasn't looking at Hina. It was looking at him. And then, impossibly, it smiled. Not with a mouth, but with its entire being. A hideous contortion of body and gesture, like it had finally earned something long denied. Akira stood up, heart hammering. On the screen, he remained seated, and the figure leaned down, lifted the baby, and walked out of frame. Akira gasped. He looked down. Hina was still in his arms, safe. But the monitor showed otherwise. The room on screen was now empty, the crib bare, no movement, just the faint static buzz like breath behind the veil. And then the screen flickered. Now it showed Akira again, but asleep, head slumped, arms limp, crib beside him, empty. Timestamp 3:33. He jolted backward, grabbing the drawer and ripping it open. The monitor lay still, black screen, no signal. But the footage had been shown. It had played itself. Not a recording, not a dream, a warning. Or perhaps a rehearsal. Akira stayed awake until sunrise. He paced the apartment, checked every lock, every window. Yui didn't stir. When morning came, he felt a brief relief, sunlight pouring through the windows like proof the night had been survived. Until he checked the monitor one more time. The device was off, yet the screen displayed a frozen image, static. Then, frame by frame, it moved again. The figure entering the room, Akira asleep, the figure lifting Hina, and then, as it left the crib, it turned toward the camera. In its arms, a bundle, swaddled, wrapped in the same silk he had found under the floor. Except this time, it wasn't rotten. It was new, clean, fresh, prepared, made ready. He heard a sound, a faint click. The nursery door. He rushed in. Hina was in her crib, smiling up at him. Her arms waved slightly, as if mimicking something unseen. Akira stared. He felt numb, exhausted. Was it over? Or had it already happened? He reached down and picked her up, pressing her close. And then he noticed she was warm, too warm. Not fevered, but lived in, as if she had been somewhere else, somewhere different, and just returned. Her mouth moved, a silent whisper. Akira didn't ask what she was saying. He couldn't bear to know. That night, he placed the monitor in a drawer, wrapped in layers of towels, sealed in tape. He left the nursery door open. He sat in the hallway, facing it, phone in hand, armed with light and logic and the refusal to sleep. He watched the minutes crawl by. 3 o'clock, 3:10, 3:25, 3:32. He braced himself. The air grew colder, but no scream came. No monitor turned on. No whisper echoed through the walls, only silence. He exhaled, daring to hope. And then, his phone lit up. A notification. Motion detected nursery camera. He opened the live view, and what he saw broke him. He was asleep, in the rocking chair, arms limp, eyes closed, crib beside him, empty. And behind him, the figure, holding the baby. But this time, Hina wasn't moving. She wasn't breathing. She wasn't there. And the figure, it looked at the camera, tilted its head, and waved. The next morning, the nursery was empty. No crib, no blankets, no monitor, no baby. Just Yui sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at the wall. Akira fell to his knees. His arms were trembling as he reached for her. "Where's Hina?" Yui blinked, a slow, deliberate blink. Then she looked at him and smiled. "She's with the woman now." Akira's breath caught in his throat. "What woman?" Yui tilted her head. Her voice dropped into something lower than a whisper, like breath sliding through cloth. "The one who never needed a face." He searched the entire apartment. Closets, drawers, a hallway, the roof, the stairwell. He even knocked on the old neighbor's door. No answer. He kicked it open. Inside, the apartment was bare, abandoned. Layers of dust coated the floor. But in the center of the empty living room was a circle of burned incense stubs, all blackened, melted into a charred sunburst. And on the wall, scratched into the plaster with a fingernail, "You should have let her take the first one." Akira snapped. He stormed back into the nursery and tore the floor open with a crowbar. Beneath the boards, more silk bundles. 6 of them, all identical, all wrapped. Some so old they had fused into the wood. Some fresh. He didn't open them. He couldn't. Instead, he went back to the records, back to the files, the hidden databases, the whispered history no one wanted to preserve. And there, finally, he found her. Nakamura Kyo, the midwife of the unspoken, an unlicensed post-war practitioner who operated in the margins, alleyway shelters, flooded basements, abandoned houses. She promised mothers a clean silence, no records, no cries, no karma. She called it binding peace. But the rumors said otherwise, that she kept the babies, that she fed them something in the dark, that she performed mouth-sealing rituals to ensure they wouldn't cry in either world. And then, she disappeared. No obituary, no arrest, no funeral. Just gone. But wherever she had lived, whatever walls had remembered her, strange things began to happen. Baby monitors picking up screams at 3:33 a.m., mothers found staring into nothing, silk bundles buried under floorboards, always wrapped, always whispering. The building Akira now lived in, it was built on top of one of those forgotten shelters, a place where the first mouthless ones were made. The city had repaved it, renamed it, stacked families on top of silence, but something old had remained beneath. A ritual never ended, a midwife never buried, and a debt still collecting. Akira confronted Yui again that night. She stood in the nursery, holding a bundle. Not Hina, something else, something wrapped. "You were going to give her to it," he whispered. Yui didn't deny it. "She chose her," she said softly. "Before she was born, I only carried her." Akira took a step forward. "You're her mother." Yui's eyes filled with tears. "I was, but that woman, She made a promise. No pain, no crying, no fear. She's a ghost. She's a mother. A better one than me. Akira reached for the bundle. Yui pulled away. She's not gone, Yui said. She's becoming. He stopped. Becoming what? Yui looked down, whispered, a mouth that speaks for the ones who never could. The monitor turned on. No one had touched it. It now showed not the nursery, but a room Akira didn't recognize. Stone walls, candlelight, blood-soaked cloth hanging like drapes, and in the center, a woman, seated, bent over, rocking. Her face was a blur of motion, like skin underwater, constantly shifting, refusing to form. She hummed, low, broken, a lullaby with no melody. In her arms, a child with no mouth, wrapped in silk, not crying, just staring. The old neighbor's voice echoed in Akira's memory. It doesn't want to hurt her, it wants to keep her. The monitor flickered, the humming grew louder. The woman looked up, straight into the lens, and even without a face, he knew she was smiling. Akira dropped the monitor. It cracked, buzzed, went silent. He grabbed Yui's arm. "We're leaving," he said, "right now." But Yui only looked down at the bundle in her arms and whispered, "She already left." He found the police. He screamed for help. He broke down at the station, showed them the footage, the files, the burial in the floor. They followed him back to the apartment. The nursery was empty. No silk bundles, no symbols, no camera, no monitor. Just a clean, quiet room, fresh paint, new crib, no evidence. The officer frowned. "You said she was missing?" Akira nodded, trembling. The officer held up a finger. "Your wife?" "My daughter," Akira said. The officer's face changed. "You have a daughter?" Akira's mouth opened, but nothing came out. For a moment, just one moment, he couldn't remember her name. He stumbled back into the hallway, into the stairwell, and there, carved into the concrete wall beside the third-floor door, "The midwife delivers to silence, and silence always remembers." Yui stopped responding to her name. Akira tried softly at first, then louder, then screaming, but she no longer looked up. She just sat in the nursery, knees tucked to her chest, rocking slowly, whispering to the walls. He brought her food. She didn't eat. He brought water. She didn't drink. The only thing she touched was the bundle. Not Hina. Not anymore. She held something wrapped in old white cloth, clutching it to her chest like it was the last piece of herself that hadn't been taken. She never let Akira see what was inside. One night, he reached for it while she slept, but before he could even touch the fabric, her hand snapped out, grabbed his wrist like a snake striking in silence. Her eyes opened, clouded, empty. "You'll wake her," Yui hissed. Akira pulled back. "She's not real," he whispered. "That's not Hina." Yui tilted her head. "Hina is becoming." "Becoming what?" Yui smiled, but not like Yui. The skin around her mouth twitched, tightened, as though it was learning how to hold the shape of joy. "She's being reshaped," Yui whispered. "Not everyone gets to be chosen." The next morning, Akira found the mirror in the hallway shattered. Not broken, split. clean lines from corner to corner, like spider legs carved into glass. And in the center of the mirror, beneath the web of cracks, his reflection was missing its mouth. Just smooth skin, breathing. He blinked. The reflection did not. He covered all the mirrors after that, but Yui began drawing them. Hundreds of them, sheets of paper spread across the nursery floor, each one a reflection, warped, smeared, screaming, not in sound, in shape. Mouths sewn shut, faces split open, eyes staring into voids. Sometimes she drew Akira, sometimes she drew the figure, but more and more often she drew herself, or what wore her. He tried to bring help, a priest, a spiritual medium, an exorcist flown in from Kyoto. They all entered, they all left pale and shaking. One of them refused to even step over the threshold. He has made vows. That room is no longer a nursery. He begged him, but the man only whispered, "Some spirits are not exorcised. They are inherited." Yui's body began to change, not in shape, but in posture. She never blinked. She never coughed. She sat with her back perfectly straight for hours, unmoving, cradling the bundle. Her voice dropped to a dull hum that never stopped, like a lullaby played on broken tape. She spoke less and less, but when she did, her words came in pairs. The firstborn must be bound. The face must be forgotten. The monitor must always watch. Akira recorded her. He replayed it, slowed it down, analyzed the waveforms. Each sentence, when reversed, formed another, a mirrored chant, a ritual command, a rehearsal for something sacred and unspeakable. That night, the monitor turned itself on again, despite being sealed in tape, locked in a drawer, unplugged. 3:33. The screen flickered to life, and there was Yui, awake, sitting in the nursery, the bundle in her arms. But this time, she wasn't alone. Two figures stood behind her. One was the faceless woman, the midwife, still watching. The other was Hina, older, standing, faceless too, wrapped in white, and all three turned slowly toward the lens, as if they had known Akira would be watching, and they smiled. He ran to the nursery, burst through the door. Yui sat alone, humming. The bundle lay still in her arms, but her face, it was too smooth, as if the skin had forgotten the shape of Yui. Her lips moved, not whispering, repeating, like she was reciting something. Akira leaned in listening, and she whispered, "You should sleep now." He fell back, suddenly dizzy. The lights dimmed, the walls warped slightly like heat rising off asphalt, and then a sound behind him. Footsteps, but soft, barefoot, small, a child. He turned, nothing there. But when he turned back, Yui was gone. The bundle lay in the crib, unmoving, and in the monitor screen, static buzzed, until an image formed. Akira asleep, crib empty, and in the background, Yui walking away, holding hands with something just out of frame. He tore down the chalk lines, he smashed the monitor, he threw salt through every corner of the apartment, but nothing stopped the feeling that Yui was already gone. Not dead, not possessed, just claimed. A mind wrapped in ritual, a soul hollowed by whispers, a mother given to the silence. That night, he slept with the lights on. He held the old incense the neighbor had given them weeks ago, the one wrapped in white thread. He clutched it like a cross, but at 3:33 a.m., the lights dimmed anyway. The temperature dropped, and the monitor glowed only for 1 second, just long enough to show a new bundle in the crib, Yui standing behind it, her face perfectly blank, her voice perfectly still, and Hina beside her, eyes open, mouth stitched shut, smiling.
Yui no longer looked like Yui, not entirely. Her hair still curled the same way, her voice still carried the same softness, but her eyes, once always tired, always loving, now stared blankly, as if no longer interested in the world outside the nursery. She didn't speak much, and when she did, she spoke in echoes, words Akira had said days before, repeated, out of context, twisted slightly like a memory gone wrong. She still rocked the crib, still hummed, still clutched that bundle of fabric like it was a heartbeat. But the woman who had once been Yui was now more ritual than person. Akira tried to record her again. He pointed his phone at her while she sat in the chair, humming to the bundle. The screen flickered. The camera app froze. When he replayed the footage, the image was warped, not glitched, but melted. Yui's face was smooth. The mouth had vanished, the eyes closed and blinking at the same time. He dropped the phone, and Yui turned to look at him, not with fear, not with anger, but with pity. "You're the only one still pretending," she said. Akira backed away. "What am I pretending?" Yui smiled, tilting her head gently. "That your daughter still belongs to you." The monitor turned back on that night. Akira hadn't touched it, hadn't charged it. It simply hummed back to life, screen glowing with soft static. And then an image formed. Akira sleeping in the nursery chair. His head tilted slightly, eyes shut, but he wasn't asleep. He was watching the monitor, just as he was now. The footage was live, but from a slightly different angle, as if someone or something was watching him from above. The camera panned, moved on its own. It turned toward the crib. Hina was there, but not how she should be. She was sitting up, older than she had been, maybe 5 years old, hair long, skin pale, mouth sewn shut with fine red thread, and next to her, the faceless figure. Not the midwife, a new one, smaller, taller than a child, shorter than a mother. Its hands were familiar, its posture familiar. Akira looked closer and felt his lungs collapse. It wasn't just another spirit. It was Yui, or what was left of her. No face, no voice, just presence. And she was watching him now. He screamed, tore the monitor out of the wall, smashed it with a chair, but the image stayed burned in his vision, that blank maternal gaze. Not hateful, not evil, just inevitable. The next morning, Akira stood in front of the bathroom mirror. He hadn't slept. His face was pale, drawn, thinner than it had been a week ago. He splashed cold water on his skin, looked again, but now the mirror no longer reflected what he was doing. He reached up to touch his cheek, but his reflection didn't move. It stared at him, expressionless, and slowly, deliberately,
Its mouth disappeared, skin smoothing over like clay beneath a sculptor's palm. Akira stumbled back, fell, knocked over the soap dish. When he looked again, the mirror was normal. His face was his own, but his hands were covered in red silk thread. Yui began drawing again. Dozens of faceless women, dozens of silk-wrapped children. Some were sleeping, some were watching. In the center of each drawing, a crib, the same crib, always surrounded by open mouths, not screaming, just waiting. Akira gathered the drawings and burned them in the kitchen sink. But in the morning, they were back, pinned to the nursery wall, perfectly arranged in a spiral. In the center, a drawing of him, eyes closed, sitting in the chair, a bundle in his arms, and no face. That night, at exactly 3:33 a.m., the nursery door opened itself. Akira didn't move. He sat on the floor, holding a flashlight. The air felt thick, wet. The light began to flicker. From inside the room, he heard movement. Not footsteps. Crawling. Something soft dragging across the floor. He turned the flashlight toward the doorway, but nothing was there. Then, the monitor screen lit up again. No plug, no power. Just light. And on it, a new image. Hina, alone in the crib. Mouth no longer sewn, but wide open, unmoving. And from it, something else was crawling out. Something shaped like a mouth, made of smoke, made of memory, made of every whisper they had ever ignored. Akira tried to scream, but no sound came out. He ran to the crib. It was empty. No bundle, no baby, only the monitor screen pulsing with static. And then the voice returned. Not a whisper, not background noise, direct, clear, cold. You have seen too much. The screen went dark, and in the silence, Akira heard a new sound. Clapping, soft, rhythmic, like a child celebrating. And from behind him, Yui's voice, faint, distant. She's learning so quickly. He turned. She was gone, but the bundle was back, neatly placed in the crib, still, waiting. He didn't touch it. He couldn't. He simply sat beside it until sunrise, and when he finally opened the cloth, inside was a mirror, cracked, and in the reflection, he no longer had a face. Akira changed the locks the next morning. Every door, every window, even the sliding one in the kitchen that never opened more than a crack. He bought motion sensors, security cameras, an intercom system that sent alerts to his phone. He kept all the lights on, taped blackout curtains to the walls, slept with salt around his bed, kept the incense burning at every hour. He didn't leave the apartment, not anymore, because now the haunting didn't come from outside. It came from the inside, looking back. The police had stopped answering his calls. He had filed missing person reports for Hina, twice. Both were marked as errors. No child listed on his records, no hospital birth certificate, no registration under his name. When he showed them photos, the officer gave him a cold stare. These are AI generated. They're not real. But they're on my phone. There's no child in these. Akira looked. The photos were blank. Each one an empty crib. A crib that once held his daughter. Now just an object. A lie. Like she'd been erased from reality. That night, the motion sensor in the hallway went off. 3:32 a.m. He jumped out of bed, knife in hand, ran to the screen, but the footage was frozen, frame locked at 3:33. Just a single still. Hina, in the center of the frame, eyes open, mouth sewn shut again, hands resting neatly in her lap. And behind her, the midwife. Closer now, crouched, hands on Hina's shoulders, smiling, somehow. Akira ran to the hallway. Empty. The nursery? Empty. He burst into the bedroom. Yui was gone. The bundle was gone. Only the monitor remained, glowing faintly in the corner. It was unplugged, still humming. He pressed the screen. It changed. A new video, labeled Entry, No Break. Timestamp 3:33. He hit play. The footage began in total darkness. Then, the crib lit by soft, static glow. Yui appeared first, standing in the doorway, motionless. She turned to the camera, held up the bundle, and slowly set it down in the crib. Then she stepped away, and something else stepped forward. From nowhere, not from the door, not from the hallway, just from the wall, like it had always been there, hidden between layers of drywall and time. It leaned down, opened the bundle, and inside was Akira. Not as a baby, as he was now. Eyes closed, face smooth, sleeping. And the figure whispered, "You always belonged to her." He slammed the monitor to the ground. It didn't break. It never broke. The screen flickered, then changed again. New label. Home footage. Looped. It played. Same footage. Over and over. Yui, the bundle, the figure, Akira inside. The same ending. Every time. You always belonged to her. The next morning, the front door was ajar, the chain still locked, the deadbolt untouched, no sign of forced entry. And on the floor, just inside, was a small white object. Akira picked it up. It was a baby tooth, still fresh, still warm, wrapped in red thread. He rushed to the nursery. The crib was full again. Bundles, so many, stacked, arranged, each one wrapped in the same silk. He tore one open. Inside, a mirror, not broken this time, whole, and in it, Akira. But her eyes weren't looking at him. They were looking through him, and her mouth moved from the mirror, not from the bundle. Akira dropped it. The mirror didn't shatter, but the image did, splintered, as though his reflection had refused to be seen. That night, every camera failed, except the nursery feed. He watched it alone in the dark, headphones on. At 3:33, the screen flashed white, then black, then something in between, shapes, whispers, scratching like nails inside his skull. Then the footage stabilized, and there he was, sleeping. The real Akira, now watching, was wide awake, but the camera showed him in bed, still, pale, face gone, and beside him, tucked into his arm, the bundle, sleeping, breathing, growing. A text arrived on his phone. No number, just, "We never entered. You let us in." He dropped the phone, and it began to vibrate over and over. Each buzz synced with the monitor. Each buzz marked 333, 333, 333, 333. He fled the apartment, ran into the street barefoot, screaming. Neighbors stared. No one helped. No one moved. Just blank faces behind their windows, lit by screens that all glowed with the same shade of static. He knocked on doors, begged for someone to listen, and then he heard it. From behind every door, from every monitor, from every hallway camera, the same voice. He's already inside.
Akira had reached the edge of sleep, of sanity, of knowing what was real. There was no help left. No neighbors, no police, no Yui. Only the monitor and the silence between the hours. He returned to the apartment just before dusk. The door creaked open like it had been waiting. Inside, everything was clean. No drawings, no bundles, no static. Just that old, unnatural stillness, like the air had been rewound. He stepped inside. The nursery door stood open. He didn't want to look, but something in him said, "If you don't enter now, you'll never leave." Inside the nursery, the crib was empty. The chair still rocked slightly, though no one had touched it. And on the wall above the crib, scrawled in black soot, a message. One prayer, one truth, one return. He didn't understand, not fully, but he remembered the neighbor's incense, the one tied in white string. He retrieved it from the drawer. There was one stick left, brittle, frayed, old. He lit it anyway. The smoke rose crooked, like a question mark trying to complete itself, and the room began to breathe. He fell to his knees beside the crib, hands trembling, tears stinging his eyes, and for the first time in weeks, he prayed, not to a god, not to a spirit, just to the thing that once held his daughter's laugh. His voice cracked. "Hina, if you're still here, if anything of you is still left, I need you to hear me." He lit another candle, and another, until the room was golden with flame. He didn't know the words, so he let the silence speak. He let grief do the chanting. And slowly, something stirred. The monitor turned on, not with static, with clarity. A new scene, a room lined with mirrors, but each one cracked differently. In the center, the faceless midwife, rocking, humming. But she wasn't holding a bundle anymore. She was holding Hina, real, unwrapped, alive, still. Akira sobbed, reached for the screen. "Please, give her back!" The midwife looked up. Though she had no eyes, she looked, and she whispered something. He couldn't hear it, so he whispered back, "Take me instead." The screen blinked, static again. Then words appeared, jagged and flickering. "Finish what was undone." Akira blinked. "I don't understand." The incense curled sharply,
turning black mid-air. The smoke fell to the floor and formed a shape, a symbol, circular, split in half, a thread passing through it like a mouth being sealed. And in that moment, he understood. He found Yui's drawings, the spiral of faces, of bundles, of mouths. He pieced them together, laid them across the nursery floor. It formed a ring, a ritual circle, a forgotten prayer. He sat in the center, lit 4 candles at the edges, held the incense above his head, and whispered the words from memory. Silence is mercy. Mercy is form. Form is taken. Voice is returned. Again and again and again, until the wall shook, until the monitor burst into light, until he heard her. Not a cry, not a word, just a breath, familiar, real, alive. He opened his eyes. The room was bright, the crib full. Hina lay sleeping, peaceful, unwrapped, unmarked, home. Akira rushed forward, sobbing. He lifted her, warm, breathing, eyes fluttering. She opened them, saw him, smiled, and whispered, "Papa." His heart shattered. He clutched her tightly, afraid it would fade, afraid it wasn't real. But the nursery was calm. The candles burned low. The monitor stayed dark. And the symbol on the floor, gone. Absorbed. Paid. That night, he wrapped her in a soft new blanket, held her close, rocked her gently. Yui never returned, not in body, but her lullaby played faintly through the vents, a morning tune, a thank you, a goodbye. At 3:32 a.m., the monitor remained silent. No static, no screams, only the soft hum of a child's sleep. Akira whispered one last prayer to the darkness, not to banish it, but to keep it from returning. And the shadows whispered back, "This time you remembered her name." For the first time in weeks, Akira slept. A real sleep. No nightmares, no screaming. Hina was beside him in her crib, still breathing, still smiling, and the apartment was still, like something sacred had finally settled, like something terrible had passed. He made breakfast the next morning, porridge, warm milk. He even sang to her, quietly. Yui's absence still ached, but Hina's presence softened it. He whispered stories to her, told her about the world outside, promised to take her far away, to somewhere without static, without rituals, without symbols written in soot. She laughed, a true laugh, for the first time since she'd been born. Akira wept quietly in the kitchen. That night, he didn't check the monitor. He left it unplugged. He didn't light incense. He didn't say a prayer. He believed, deep down, that whatever they had endured, they'd survived it. And so, at 3:33 a.m., when he stirred in his sleep, he didn't open his eyes. Even when the soft click of the nursery door echoed down the hallway, even when a hum drifted through the vents, even when the monitor screen lit up without power and began to play a new recording, The screen showed Akira in the nursery, sleeping in the rocking chair, Hina in his arms, peaceful, still. The camera angle was from above, like the ceiling itself was watching. Time code, 3:33 a.m. The image flickered, then zoomed. A new presence entered the frame. Not the midwife, not Yui. A figure wrapped in shadow, featureless, mouthless. But it held something in its arms, another bundle. It stepped beside the crib, leaned forward, and gently lifted Hina from Akira's arms. Akira didn't stir, didn't blink, didn't breathe. He just sat there, asleep, and the figure cradled the baby, stepped back, turned, and walked out of frame. The monitor buzzed. Footage ended. A new label appeared. Final transfer. Complete. Akira woke with a jolt. Sunlight. Silence. He looked beside him. Empty crib. No Hina. No blanket. He stumbled through the apartment, heart pounding. No sound, no movement. He searched every room, under the bed, in the hallway, in the closet. Nothing. No trace, like she had never existed. He fell to his knees in the nursery. The monitor lay on the floor, glowing. A new message. You were dreaming, but we were not. He checked his phone. Photos, gone. Voice memos, gone. Birth certificate, erased. Her name, missing from every record. He opened his camera roll. Only one photo remained. Not of Hina, but of himself, sitting in the nursery chair, eyes shut, holding a bundle of ash. And behind him, in the mirror, the faceless woman, the midwife, smiling. He called the police again, tried to explain. They asked for his name. He gave it. They said, "We already have a report filed for your disappearance." Akira froze. "What do you mean, my disappearance?" A pause, then static. The call dropped. He ran back into the nursery. The rocking chair was moving. Not fast, not slow, just steady, as if someone had just left it. On the crib's edge was a note, scrawled in charcoal, handwritten. "Thank you for the offering. She sleeps so well in silence." He collapsed. Tried to scream, but his voice cracked. No sound. He crawled to the bathroom mirror, looked up. His mouth. Gone. Smooth, sealed, like clay molded shut, like memory swallowed whole. And the reflection whispered without moving, "You are asleep, and she is awake. We only ever take one." He pounded the mirror, smashed the glass. The fragments fell. Each shard reflected a different version of himself, some smiling, some crying, one holding the midwife's hand. He picked up a piece, saw Hina's face for a brief moment, smiling, blinking, and then fading. That night, the monitor played one last time. No noise, No video, just text. He gave her freely. He chose to rest. She walks now in places we keep. Another silence bound.
It began with whispers through the vents. Other families, once silent behind closed doors, began asking questions. First in passing, then in panic. Someone on the third floor mentioned hearing footsteps in their baby's room at night. Another on the fifth said their monitor kept flickering at exactly 3:33 a.m. A woman from 2D cried in the lobby, clutching a photo that now showed only a crib where her daughter used to be. The doorman joked nervously, "This building's haunted or something." He didn't come back the next day. Akira watched it unfold from the shadows. He didn't leave. He didn't speak. He simply observed. People ran into the same wall he had. Tech support that claimed it was a hardware bug. Police reports that mysteriously vanished. Baby items that disappeared from photos and receipts. Names that no longer appeared on forms. And every time they tried to leave, the monitor followed. It glowed even in hotel rooms, buzzed inside taxis, flashed static in elevators. No one could escape the time, 3:33. The hour wasn't bound to a place, it was bound to a pattern, and the pattern had spread. In apartment 4C, a toddler was found standing in his crib, arms raised toward the camera, smiling. But the monitor showed two shadows standing behind him, neither of them human. In 6A, a baby went missing in the night. No door opened, no window unlatched, no alarm triggered. But on the monitor, a pale figure lifted the child, and a note appeared on the screen. "We keep what is offered." The building held a meeting. Tenants gathered in the lobby. Whispers, tears, arguments. Someone mentioned Akira's name, said he had gone mad, that he had claimed his baby had been taken by a ghost through the baby monitor. A man in the back said, "That's not what happened. He gave her." Silence. No one had seen him speak. He wasn't on the lease, wasn't a neighbor, but he vanished before anyone could ask who he was. The building changed after that. Subtle things at first. Mailboxes no longer held names, just unit numbers. Cameras in the hallways recorded static during the night. And babies stopped crying, even when they should have. A woman on the first floor screamed when she checked her monitor and saw her own face, asleep, while someone cradled her child. But it wasn't a stranger. It was her. And she was humming her own lullaby, backwards. Whispers began passing through the building like a virus. Don't plug in the monitor. Don't stay awake at 3:33. Don't say their names out loud. Don't unwrap the silk. Don't answer when your child whispers first. Some listened. Some didn't. The ones who didn't stopped showing up in the elevator. Akira moved back into the nursery. He no longer needed food, or sleep, or speech. He simply watched, sometimes through the monitor, sometimes without it. He carved tally marks into the wall, one for each child taken, each silence sown, each name forgotten. They added up quickly, and one night, at 3:33, the tally marks rearranged themselves into a shape, a symbol he recognized, the same as the soot sigil above his daughter's crib, the mark of Kuchi Hasuri, the mouthless one. Yui never came back, but her presence lingered, sometimes in the corner of a monitor feed,
sometimes in the reflection of a window, once standing just behind a mother in 5B, smiling. Her mouth was sewn shut, but her eyes were pleading, as if she had wanted to be taken, as if the curse had rewritten her so deeply she could never return. Akira's name faded from the lease. The landlord said the unit had been vacant for months, but neighbors heard footsteps inside, a lullaby, and the flickering of static. One mother swore she saw him through her monitor just for a second, rocking back and forth, holding her child, then gone. No one stayed long after that. Families moved out, but the silence followed. Monitors glowed in storage units, in moving trucks, in new apartments halfway across Tokyo, all blinking at the same hour, 3:33, all whispering, "We never left." Some parents unplugged the monitors, tossed them, smashed them, but their children still stared into the empty space where the screen used to be, smiled, and whispered, "She's coming." The building's registry changed. No children were listed on any floor, no babies, no birth records. But every night, through the monitor static, soft giggles echoed, dozens of them, from different rooms, in perfect, eerie harmony. And Akira? He remained in the nursery, watching, waiting, part of the ritual now, another echo in the system, another sleeper behind the screen, not trapped, not cursed, just transformed, one of many, faceless, faithful, forever tuned to the hour that never stops.
Tokyo didn't notice at first. The trains still ran, the vending machines still buzzed, children still laughed in parks, their voices bright beneath the neon haze. But then came the stories, scattered, unverified. A family in Shinjuku found their baby monitor playing footage of a child that wasn't theirs, a little girl in a white crib, smiling at the ceiling. In Sapporo, a father reported hearing lullabies in his headphones at exactly 3:33 a.m., though no device was playing. In Kyoto, a mother found her monitor showing a live feed of her rocking her baby, except she wasn't in the room. And in each story, the ending was the same. The baby vanished. No broken doors, no broken glass, just a silence so complete it felt like the child had never existed at all. The footage always looped. It always started at 3:33. It always ended with a smile, the kind that doesn't belong on a face too young to understand. And always a figure just behind the crib. Sometimes tall, sometimes crawling, sometimes hanging upside down from the ceiling, watching. Faceless, silent, but never gone. It spread to the suburbs, to cities, to villages, not through news, not through panic, but through monitors, old ones, new ones, smart ones. Some weren't even connected, some weren't even plugged in, and yet, at 3:33 a.m., they would blink. Once, and then play back footage that no one recorded. In Osaka, a daycare reported 14 cribs empty in one morning. No signs of struggle, only monitors flashing static, each synced to the same time code. When authorities reviewed the footage, it cut out just before 3:33, then resumed, showing the children gone. The timestamp never changed. It simply froze, forever. An online thread appeared. Why does my baby monitor scream at 3:33? The post had no replies,
but thousands of views, thousands of bookmarks. The comments section disabled itself. The hospitals followed. Nurseries emptied without explanation. Doctors blamed stress, fatigue, mass psychosis. But nurses started quitting. They said they could hear voices through the intercoms, lullabies from rooms with no patients. One nurse claimed the security cameras caught a figure moving on the ceiling. No hands, no face, but it whispered in the voice of the child who had just died hours before. Manufacturers were flooded with support tickets, all the same subject line: monitor triggers at 3:33. No known bug, no firmware to patch. The devices weren't failing. They were simply showing what was there. Parents started wrapping their babies in cloth, not to protect them, but to hide them. They closed mirrors, blocked screens, unplugged every device. It didn't help. The hour always found a way. A microwave reflection, a window's glare, the shadow under a crib. It always came back to 3:33. Then came the footage, not from a monitor, from a doorbell cam in a different city. A woman half asleep wandering into the street, her mouth sewn shut with red thread, cradling nothing in her arms. But when slowed down, her shadow showed she was carrying something. And behind her, dozens of others, men, women, children, each silent, each empty-handed, each casting two shadows. One family live-streamed it, out of fear, out of hope. Thousands watched as the clock approached 3:33. The parents sat by the crib, the baby sleeping. Then static, then silence, and then gone, right on camera. Nothing touched her, nothing entered. She just stopped existing. The crib empty, the sheet flat, the parents screaming. And the viewers? Each one reported their devices flashing static at exactly the same time. It became urban legend, an urban curse, a bedtime myth whispered in late-night forums. Don't watch the monitor too long. Don't respond to your baby's whispers after 3 a.m. Don't fall asleep with the camera on. Never follow the static when it calls your name. But the warnings came too late. By then, the pattern had spread across countries, across continents, across languages, because the haunting didn't need understanding. It just needed viewers. Akira was never found, but some say his image still appears, occasionally, in the corners of strangers' monitors, in the glass reflection of hospital IV drips, in baby toys that hum on their own, just watching, sometimes rocking, sometimes smiling, sometimes holding a bundle that moves. His apartment? Sealed, condemned. But maintenance workers report hearing soft humming inside, late at night, always at the same time. And once, just once, a flashlight flickered across the nursery wall and caught a fresh carving in the plaster. Another silence bound. One woman tried to fight it. She kept her baby awake every night, refused sleep, refused screens, held him close every hour. And it worked, until she dozed off, just for a moment. She woke up to silence, an empty crib, and her baby monitor glowing, unplugged, the screen reading, "He chose to rest." 3:33 is no longer a time. It's a threshold, a door, an invitation. And the monitors, they are no longer just cameras. They are altars. Each one broadcasting the ritual to a new believer. Each one recording a child's last breath in this world and their first in another. where silence raises them, where names are replaced with symbols, where mothers forget and fathers wake up to no one. In homes across the world, people wake suddenly, not from nightmares, but from absence. And in the darkness of their room, a soft blue light hums from the corner. A monitor, never plugged in, flickering, buzzing. And just before the screen turns black, they see it. A figure, a crib, a baby smiling, and someone waving from the other side.